Thank you all for joining us. Okay, so my name's Tim Havilah, and for the past 20 years I've been a conservation stonemason in Sydney. And like many of the small but dedicated number of restoration stonemasons in Australia, I find practising a building tradition thousands of years old and working with sandstone enormously rewarding. My introduction to stonework began on a working holiday in the UK, where I was most fortunate to work alongside some very talented tradesmen. Their familiarity with the material made it look easy. Well, it isn't, as blood blisters and aching muscles will quickly demonstrate. Yet the satisfaction of constructing or maintaining something of enduring beauty and durability that will remain long after I'm gone gives me a great amount of pride. The stonemasonry trade also appealed to my youthful defiance. My skills weren't reliant on electrical power or outside of the office environment, and I wasn't locked in front of a computer. My workplace was the scaffold and the dusty workshop, and my work a delicate balance of the hands and the head. To take a raw block of stone and through a series of carefully executed and measured steps reproduce an intricate architectural form requires great patience and skill. The art of making accurate and geometrically complex forms in stone is known as banker masonry, and that's from the French term the banque, which is the table on which the masons undertake the fashioning of a piece of stone for construction. And while modern power tools have greatly reduced the labour spent performing each of the operations, the traditional methods still underpin the trade. It is not uncommon for a large and detailed piece to take up to several weeks to complete. Any shortcuts or lapses of attention during the procedures may lead to permanent defects, or worse still, lead to the rejection of the stone, which can often be quite an expensive mistake. And so, accordingly, skilled banker masons are in high demand. And it's the elite banker masons that are awarded the most prestigious pieces, often enriched with carved elements. In my experience, I've encountered less than 20 masons who could execute the most intricate works, and I'm not one of those. My own career path has developed through the other main field of specialisation, that of the fixer mason, and our main task is to take a finished piece of new stone and carefully insert it into the building fabric without damaging it or the surrounding stones. And in this way, the fixing of stones in restoration work differs greatly from that of new building, where the stones are successively positioned above each other with no overhead obstructions, making the use of lifting equipment relatively easy. Many people ask if I suffer from a bad back, which I can thankfully say I've avoided. Much of my work has involved the installation of stones well over several hundred kilos, with the largest being around 4 tonnes, well beyond the capacity for manual lifting. Yet even with the most elaborate lifting rigs and block and tackles, careless handling can easily ruin the banker mason's final work. Stone's strong, heavy and dense, but it is easily chipped. So the fixing of each stone requires careful planning and opportunities to reverse the operation if the elements don't fit. The fine tolerances in architectural masonry make precision paramount, and any errors over a couple of millimetres will be apparent, especially when the play of cast shadows exacerbate inaccuracies. So for the past 15 years I've overseen restoration projects and been involved from tendering, scaffold design, stone survey and drafting. Technical drawing is a crucial element in any project, and again the numbers of masons who can accurately draw the required forms for reproduction are few. So if all stages are done well, once finished our work should be hard to determine from the ground, and so successful restoration stonemasonry is the collaborative efforts of the banker mason and the team who installs it. While each project has its own unique challenges, the team develops a benevolent relationship with every building in their care. Throughout my career, I've eagerly sought out and read any material that would enhance my knowledge of the trade. I've acquired a new vocabulary, that of architectural decoration, and with it comes the history of the world written in building technologies, mostly anonymous works of masons' guilds, and also the innovative engineers and architects. And the virtuosity of the ancient builders still leaves me in awe. All of this informal learning left a great desire to formally educate and train myself in the higher end skills of those rare and incredibly gifted master masons who conceived and executed these works of genius. Regrettably, for me at least, formal training for masons begins and ends with the 3-year entry-level apprenticeship training program. So as the demands of early parenthood began to wane, I enrolled in the Masters of Heritage Conservation program at Sydney Uni. I wanted to supplement my practical skills by acquiring the basic theory, principles and practices and legislative framework of heritage conservation. I was in for a shock as my lifelong arrogant rejection of computer skills rapidly became an apparent hurdle. I was, however, exhilarated by the newly acquired skills of critical thinking, reading and reference research, and in so was introduced to new artistic and architectural movements and concepts such as philosophy and social reform. My dinner parties were greatly enriched, finding touch points with people from a diversity of professional backgrounds. Now, whilst undertaking the course was enormously rewarding as a personal achievement, it became apparent that the course content offered little to advance my trade-based vocational knowledge. My specialisation in heritage conservation is grounded in the maintenance and preservation of the immediate fabric of the building, and not the bureaucratic tools of planning, policy, heritage listing and legislature. And so, for my final dissertation, I examined the recurrent shortage of stonemasons on the National Skills Shortage List. From this basis, the logical question was, well, if there is a shortage, how many masons are there? My research quantified the numbers of competent restoration stonemasons to be around 1,000 nationally. Now, I estimate that I've personally worked alongside at least 200 of these skilled masons, and easily 1/3 of them are overseas trained. And additional to periodically taking on our apprentices, like many firms, our company regularly takes on overseas masons on working holidays. The level of proficiency amongst these young craftspersons is generally very good, and I've learned a lot from some of them. The downside of having a steady stream of skilled transient masons is that the imperative to train and upskill local masons is reduced. Which brings me finally to my fellowship aims and objectives. As outlined, stonemasonry in Australia is a small industry, and the numbers of those competent with restoration work are even smaller. Formal post-trade training opportunities are non-existent, while tertiary conservation studies tend to lead away from practical work into managerial or professional occupations. My aim is to promote traditional building trades, particularly restoration stonemasonry, as a rewarding vocation. It is vital to attract new entrants and to develop training opportunities for experienced tradespersons to add to their technical skill sets and enhance their understanding of conservation principles and practices that underpin their work. Almost all professions encourage upskilling, yet the construction industry in general does not. Ultimately, I'd like to see the development of recognised qualifications that acknowledge the degree of specialised knowledge and skills required to work on Australia's historic buildings. Yet I'm not so naive to think that this will happen quickly. However, the template for such a system has been developed in the United Kingdom. Similarly to the current Australian situation, a decade ago, a series of UK studies pointed to a looming shortage of traditional tradespersons. What differs markedly is the concerted and coordinated response. Leading the charge to raise awareness, promote and develop traditional building craft training in the UK has been the National Heritage Training Group. Armed with the aforementioned well-researched reports, the organisation was instrumental in lobbying the Construction Skills Council and Industry Training Board to develop a distinct range of accredited specialist heritage training practitioner qualifications. The individual tradespersons are now able to demonstrate their specialist training credentials on the wallet-sized construction skills card system. English Heritage increasingly prefers that tradespersons present their qualifications to work on their portfolio of Grade 1 listed buildings and encourages the provision of training be included in tender conditions. Another proactive response by the UK heritage sector has been the active partnership building between many of the UK's heritage organisations, numerous independent charity trusts and foundations. Bursaries and scholarships are made available for talented practitioners to attend the numerous centres of excellence delivering stonemasonry craft and conservation management training packages, some of which lead to tertiary qualifications. One of the most interesting to me was the course called the Foundation Degree in Historic Building Conservation. Stonemasons, along with other traditional building trades, undertake craft training and theory at the Purpose-Built Building Crafts College, and then progress to a one-year academic studies at tertiary level, with also a subsequent honours program available. The Engine Shed in Stirling, Scotland offers similar craft, undergraduate and postgraduate conservation training program. The highlight of my fellowship tour was to be escorted onto the scaffolds of Gloucester and Canterbury cathedrals. Having permanent teams of resident stonemasons, both sites are active participants in the Cathedral's Workshop Fellowship Program, offering stonemasonry apprentices and conservation management students the invaluable opportunity to supplement their studies whilst undertaking paid work at the World Heritage listed sites. My fellowship report will detail how stonemasonry, like other traditional trades, is well represented at an industry level in the UK. One of the more active advocates is called the Men of Stone Society, whose mission statement is to stimulate interest in good buildings of all periods and encourage the craftsmanship needed to create and preserve this excellence. The Society freely publishes articles of interest to the stonemason and has a directory listing over 20 institutions offering training. As I looked into the UK heritage sector organisations, stakeholder groups and colleges, I repeatedly found an abundance of related links between the various websites, advertising upcoming heritage events, carving competitions, and numerous short courses geared to both amateurs and tradespersons alike. I made easy use of these links to find a dry stone walling course and a letter cutting course that suited my short travel itinerary. These two short courses I attended clearly demonstrate that there exists a high level of public interest in traditional stonemasonry skills. At the dry stone walling workshop set in the picturesque Cotswolds, I met one young landscaper attending the course to learn the art in advance of an upcoming work project. The local Cotswolds Conservation Board regularly ran both letter cutting and stone sculptural short courses at the adapted New Brewery Art Centre in Cirencester, but also housed studios for glass blowing, ceramics, fine joinery and silversmithing. The new brewery was an excellent demonstration of holistic heritage conservation in repurposing an historic industrial building, providing workspaces for various bespoke artisans and providing a local tourism point of interest, and I believe that this model holds many opportunities for development in Australia. The second leg of my tour took me to Italy and the historic marble carving town of Pietrasanta near the world famous quarries of Carrara, which have produced the finest white stone continuously since Roman times. Pietrasanta's carving tradition dates back to Michelangelo. Its piazzas and streets filled with countless sculptural works of art. My 1 week spent at the carving studio could have easily been enough. My chosen piece, a bit hard to see, a pair of hands holding a mason's mallet and chisel remains unfinished. While my stone cutting skills were in some ways an advantage, I had to discard the straight, clean lines and rigid square corners that I learned in my craft. These do not exist in anatomy, and I've never spent so much time studying my own hands, looking for subtle proportions and natural positions. I quickly learned that there was much more to learn and was very grateful for the instruction given by some extremely talented carvers from many Northern Hemisphere countries. Two of these were German masons on extended stays to master their art thanks to a remarkable grant system offered by the European Union called the Erasmus Program. So as I conclude my presentation, I'd like to summarise the themes and recommendations that will be examined in my forthcoming fellowship report. Similar to many specialised trades in Australia, stonemasonry is poorly represented at the industry level. An alliance of crafts, artisans and bespoke occupations is desperately needed to raise awareness and lobby on behalf of our common interests. And in time, brand recognition by way of membership of the Guild should be equated with professionalism, quality and excellence. The building of cross-agency partnerships is also vital to secure a more permanent source of funding and to acquire suitable and accessible premises to act as both training centres and to undertake repairs to the very fabric of the buildings themselves. The model need not be reliant on permanent funding. Historic industrial buildings and dormant churches could be adapted to provide artisans' workspaces and offer short courses to the public. And in addition to their commercial works, the artisan becomes the trainer. The facilities may then also attract and cater to the more experienced practitioner. They may also act as libraries of out-of-print trade manuals, catalogues and current research papers. Local governments and managers of public and ecclesiastical assets should be encouraged to look away from the bottom line tendering process and commission the training collective to fabricate and install works. Access to heritage grant funding should be conditional to a provision of training, either for on or off-site practical works or in the research and documentation phase. The on-site learning would then provide commonalities in the development of a training syllabus specifically aimed at historic building fabric conservation, ultimately leading to accredited heritage skills, training, recognition and qualifications. It is often said that heritage conservation is a collaborative endeavour. As such, the roles and skills of the individual tradespersons undertaking remedial works is a crucial part of any good heritage outcome. We must invest time, energy and money into well-designed craft education and training, studying and respecting both past and modern aspects, and encourage self-belief in our future craftspeople, for we are no less able than historic craftsmen of producing the masterpieces we marvel at today. Only through the delivery of such a course with the apprentices and adult learners will they gain the breadth and depth of learning to produce the work of the highest quality. Then from those, the best will emerge who are fully equipped to later develop into future leaders that can earn the respect of all parties. Specialised skills, such as those represented here tonight, are an invaluable resource, and we all have a stake in ensuring they are not lost. I'll now thank my fellowship sponsor, the Valmorbida family, and acknowledge the fine work by the ISSI and the National Trust in raising awareness and promoting excellence in building fabric conservation. Thank you all.